Let's start with a question. When it comes to the debate over mass shootings in America, why does the discussion always go toward tougher gun laws? And yet we're not talking about the role of antidepressants and other psychiatric medication. The truth, the connection between mass shooters and these meds is stunning. Let's give it a reality check you won't get anywhere else.
Reality Check with Ben Swan, powered by Dash Digital Cash.
Well, the response to the mass shooting in Parkland, Florida has been call after call for tougher gun laws. But it seems to ignore the issues, once again, surrounding antidepressants and psychiatric drugs. Now, without question, Nikolas Cruz, the 19-year-old man who killed 17 students and wounded more than a dozen that afternoon, February 14th, had for years exhibited signs of mental health problems. We talked about it in a reality check just a few episodes back. But here's what we know about Cruz. Cruz's adoptive father, Roger Cruz, died more than a decade ago. His adoptive mother, Linda Cruz, reportedly struggled with her son and his brother Zachary until her death in November of 2017. Barbara Kumbatovich, a former sister-in-law, told the Miami Herald that Linda Cruz did the best she could and that Nicholas and Zachary were adopted and had some emotional issues. Kumbatovich told the publication that she believed Nicholas was on medication to deal with those issues and that Linda was struggling with Nicholas the last couple of years. Now, in addition to Kumbatovich's statements, records also show that police were called to the Cruz residence as many as 45 times since 2008. That's according to BuzzFeed News. Between reports that Cruz had previously pulled a gun on his brother and mother and an anonymous FBI tip from January that Cruz had been suicidal but then decided, quote, he wants to kill people and that he was going to explode, all evidence is clearly indicating an unstable young man with numerous documented concerns from those who knew him. Now, we still don't know what, if any, medications Cruz was actually on, but we do know that the number of high-profile mass shootings over the last 30 years and the link to psychiatric medication is deeply concerning. In 1989, 47-year-old Joseph T. Westbecker shot 20 workers in a Louisville, Kentucky factory, killing 9 people, just a month after he began taking Prozac. The drug maker Eli Lilly and Company later settled a lawsuit brought by survivors. 1998, 15-year-old Oregon school shooter Kip Kinkle, he opened fire in his school cafeteria. He was also on Prozac. 1999, Columbine killer Eric Harris was on Luvox, another antidepressant. Now, an important fact about Luvox. According to author David Kupleman from his book How Evil Works, Luvox manufacturer Solvay Pharmaceuticals concedes that during short-term controlled clinical trials, 4% of children and youth taking Luvox, that's 1 in 25, developed mania, a dangerous and violence-prone mental derangement characterized by extreme excitement and delusion. Let's go back to that list of shooters again. In 2005, 16-year-old Jeff Weiss, living on Minnesota's Red Lake Indian Reservation, shot and killed 9 people and wounded 5 others before killing himself. Weiss had been taking Prozac. 2007, the Virginia Tech shooter had shot and killed 32 people. Officials found prescription medicine related to the treatment of psychological problems among his personal belongings. That according to the New York Times. 2012, Colorado theater shooter James Holmes, he was reportedly prescribed the antidepressant Zoloft. 2013, Navy Yard shooter Aaron Alexis sprayed bullets at office workers and in a cafeteria, killing 13 people, including himself. Alexis had been prescribed trazodone by his Veteran Affairs doctor. 2014, Elliot Rodger went on a shooting spree after stabbing 3 men to death. He had been prescribed psychotropic drugs, that according to the LA Times. 2017, Las Vegas shooter Stephen Paddock, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Paddock had been prescribed diazepam. Diazepam is known by its brand name Valium. That's how most of us would know it. It's a sedative, hypnotic drug in the class of drugs which studies have shown can trigger aggressive behavior. Paddock received his prescription in June of 2017. Just months later, in October, he carried out the deadliest shooting in modern American history. Now, there are dozens of other examples here, but to be clear, we're not saying that absolutely prescription drugs are to blame for mass shootings. The underlying issues of mental health, though, that these shooters all seem to have are alarming. And knowing that the majority of them were prescribed antidepressants, you have to consider this. Some of the most alarming side effects of Prozac include suicidal thoughts, self-mutilation, and manic behavior. Zoloft can cause hallucinations, agitation, and memory problems. For Valium, it's also hallucinations, depression, and thoughts of suicide. These are dangers that drug makers themselves are required to disclose. Now, the use of antidepressants in America has skyrocketed. As of 2013, 12% of Americans were filling prescriptions for them. And while millions of people do not suffer violent episodes, the drug makers warn that some people may and do. Now, you've heard some of those warnings in the commercials that those pharmaceutical companies pay to run on mainstream media networks. According to the New York Times, 368 of those ads were shown in 2016. It's an increase of almost 65% over 2012. Pharmaceutical companies are estimated to spend $6.4 billion on direct-to-consumer advertising in 2016. That according to USA Today. Further, Open Secrets reports that in the 2016 election cycle, pharmaceutical companies contributed $12.4 million to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, another $1.5 million to former Republican Governor Jeb Bush, more than $812,000 to Senator Ted Cruz, $446,000 to Chris Christie, $388,000 to Donald Trump, and $280,000 and above to Bernie Sanders. So what you need to know is that correlation does not always equal causation. We know that. We also do not know that the reason for these mass shootings is because of any one or any number of drugs, nor do we know how much of a role, if any, that these drugs may have played. But the question is, why is that? Why are politicians and mainstream media pushing so many discussions about guns and virtually no discussion of whether or not antidepressants or psychiatric drugs may have played a role? Because the numbers, they are compelling. And they beg a question that deserves an answer. That's Reality Check. Let's talk about it right now on Twitter and Facebook.